Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. All right, let me bring in one of our really good friends, longtime friend. We've been doing TV and radio and training and stuff with Tiger McKee for so long, Shootrite Academy. Tiger, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. How are you, sir?
Tom, we are doing great. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to all you guys. It's, as always, an honor and a pleasure to be on your show, sir.
Well, I appreciate all your time and everything you do. One of the things I've been thinking about is, we hit this crossover point where we can get into a new year. We think about, okay, what just happened and what do we want to do next year? What can we do that's better? Everybody wants to lose weight. Okay, that's a 3-day project, and then we're done with that. But, in terms of shooting and all, one of the things I had on my mind, I was going to bounce off of you, is the idea of the need, and I don't know, maybe there's no need for it, and you could tell me, but I kind of think there's a need for more firearms instructors. What do you think?
I certainly agree with you there. The more qualified instructors that there are, then the more people we're going to get trained up safely where they can use their firearm efficiently if necessary. So the more instructors, in my opinion, the better.
Now, here's what's interesting about that, and you would not even have thought of it because that's just who you are, Tiger. It's that you immediately said, yes, we need more instructors. Some people would say, well, that means more competition for Tiger from a business standpoint. You never even gave that a thought. It's just this is what we need as the shooting community.
Well, or at least in my opinion, it's not about competition. We're trying to spread the gospel about safe firearms use. So there's not even a competition element in there, or at least there should not be, right?
No, there should not be. And I find it's an interesting thing. People who are just getting into being instructors think that way about, oh, gee, how's this going to affect my business? And the longer they've been at it and the better they are at it, the less they worry about that, and the more they just want to say, we need to train as many people as we can, and it's going to take a whole lot more of us to do that.
There you go, exactly, yes, sir. And, the NRA has, great programs to get your feet wet in the instructors. So, yeah, the more of that, the better, for sure.
Yeah, USCCA has programs. One of the things I was thinking about, it's interesting because you jumped right in there because you said qualified instructors, and getting a certificate that you are now a trainer does not necessarily make you qualified. It's one hoop to get through, one barrier to get over. But I would suggest, and I'm going to say this for everybody who's already an instructor, because there are a lot of people who are instructors out there. I would suggest you, as an instructor, need to be taking a class somewhere from somebody at least once a year. Not a class on how to be a better instructor, but just a really good instructional class. What do you think?
Yes, sir, I agree because, well, for one thing, we know that we'll develop bad habits we're not even aware of. So training under somebody, they might spot something that you didn't even know you were doing wrong or that you could do better. Mm-hmm. And then also, it's the basics, the basic fundamentals never change. And then that's all, should always be constant. And then you may learn or pick up something, okay, here is a better way for me to teach this according to how that instructor works.
Well, and people learn a lot of different ways. And one of the things I think you develop, and you've been at this a long time, and you are really a world-class instructor, it's figuring out that the way I'm explaining this to this person is not connecting and stopping and backing up and coming through a different door.
That's an excellent point. So in addition to getting some firearms training regularly to make sure you're tuned up, you also need to kind of read and research, okay, here's how you teach stuff to people. Here are the different ways of learning and approaching a subject to get it across to your student. Well,
yeah, it's not just about knowing guns. When you decide to become an instructor, you now are a teacher. You are an educator. And if you've never been into that world before, I mean, there's a reason that teachers go to school to become teachers. There is a science to how people learn and figuring out, okay, some people learn this way, some people learn that way. And, I've even seen it where, and I know you've done it, where you're just, for whatever reason, good, bad, and different, you're not connecting with this student. And you just go over to another instructor who's on the range with you and say, look, could you go over and talk to this person? And all of a sudden they have a connection that works.
Yeah, the light bulb turns on, right? Because they're approaching it from a little bit different standpoint. Mm-hmm. And, something, like you said, it clicks there for that student.
You got to get your ego out of the way, don't you?
There's no room for egos on the range for anybody.
For anybody, student or instructor.
Yes, sir, exactly.
Before you got on, we were just talking to the guy who called in. He was an instructor, and he said, he says, I can't tell how many people came up to the line and started giving me their resume of how much they know and what they've done and everything else, and thinking, how about if we just pick up a gun and start shooting? We're going to know all we need to know in about 10 seconds.
So we were talking about ego a minute ago.
Right.
You have to have a certain amount of confidence, right? But you can't let your confidence grow too big. So all of that falls into the mental aspects because we're basically talking about problem solving at high speed. It's about being able to assess a situation and make decisions in sometimes fractions of a second. Here's how I need to respond to this problem.
One of the things that I've thought about, and it applies here, but in all things, is how do you know if you're any good at something? It's like, okay, I go out to the range, and the man or the woman who just goes out to the range and shoots by himself or herself or with a couple of friends and thinks, I'm pretty good at this, but has never put it to the test, never gone to a class, never done competition, has really no idea where he or she falls within the realm of, good, better, best, or really excellent. You got to go put it to the test somewhere, and it's best to do that at the range and not wait until you get tested in a self-defense situation.
Yeah, learning how to fight on the job is not a good idea, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you've got to, once you get those fundamentals down, and you're going, okay, I can manipulate the pistol properly, I can shoot it accurately. When I press the trigger, I get a good hit. Then you got to start looking at the defensive aspects. And there again, that's where training comes in. A qualified instructor is going to tell you, okay, you're looking really good here. Okay, we need to do a little bit of work on this. And just through the range work, you develop that confidence. I can move, I can draw my pistol, I can use cover properly. If necessary, I can shoot accurately. And then if it, heaven forbid, you have to use this stuff in real life, you're going, okay, I've done this several thousand times on the range. This is no different.
Just apply what you've already learned to solve the problem and get through to the other side. Here's a question for you. You've done all this training, and you've given all this training, and you've trained with the best because you are a student of this as you go along. Having done all that, and you are very competent at this, what is your mindset in a situation such as a carjacking in terms of what you would do? I mean, some people are going to say, man, Tiger can just light those people up. And I'm thinking, I bet you that's not exactly where your mind is on something like that.
You know what? If they want my truck, they can have it. I mean, it's really old. It needs some work. But I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have to harm somebody, or maybe I get injured or hurt or worse over something that can easily be replaced.
It's
so still, again, at the top of a list of tactics is avoidance and escape.
It's so interesting to me that through the years, I've been doing this a long time now, working with you, working with Gun Sight, working with Clint Smith. I mean, it just doesn't matter. The people, SIG Academy, all the people who are good at this, who have done it for years and really understand it, they all have the same answer. Give them the damn car. Don't.
For sure.
Don't. And that's, you know what? And that's where your ego gets caught up in it, doesn't it?
That's exactly it. Yes, sir. Our ego gets us in trouble more than any. That's probably the cause of every problem in the world, right? Somebody's like, "How dare you do this to me?"
Yes.
Or "I'm entitled to this," right?
You know, and the thing is, yes, it's going to be inconvenient for a period of hours because they stole your car. Okay, call the police, call the insurance company, get it all taken care of. Or you could be in a hospital, or you could be in a body bag, or you could be facing trial for murder. I mean, none of these are very attractive compared to the alternative, which is, here's the keys, I'm out of here, dude, I'm gone.
Here's the deal, like fighting is nowhere near as romantic as it looks in the TV and movies.
Oh, that's a good point. Now, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, a lot of people get their education on fighting from what they see, which is TV and movies, which, as you know, and everybody else that works with this stuff knows, that's like a fairy tale, right?
It's nonsense. It is. It's just nonsense. It's same with gun training and everything else. You learn all your bad habits by watching bad stuff on TV and movies. But what you're saying is the same thing for actual fighting, like fist fighting and everything else. Because, I mean, when you get into a real fist fight or any kind of physical altercation, I mean, I always remember Clint asking people, says, how many have been on a fight? How many have been on the ground? If you've been in a fight, you've probably been on the ground.
And then you probably hurt really bad the next day, even if you won.
Yes, and that's probably just a schoolyard fight. We're not talking about a fight where somebody's trying to poke out your eyes or cut your throat or stick a knife in you.
But the thing is, if they want something, don't let your ego get in trouble. Give it to them. Now, if they're trying to take my truck and my wife is in it, that's a whole different story.
No. All bets are off. You know, number one, I'm not going to get in a car and go anywhere with you. Number two, you're not going to take anybody who is important to me. I'm not going to let you hurt them. But as far as just physical property stuff, no. And
it can all be replaced.
And here's the thing, and we talk about this all the time, Tiger. You have to make that decision now because you cannot make it on the fly.
Yes, sir. Again, it's kind of difficult to come up with new skills in the middle of the confrontation. So you got to mentally, again, it gets back to the mental aspects. You got to decide, okay, here's 3 questions somebody should ask themselves before they get into a confrontation. Number 1, do you know the details? Because oftentimes, if it does not involve you directly, it's difficult to tell who the good and bad guys are. You with me?
Yeah.
Number 2, are you going to contribute to solving the problem, or are you going to complicate it for the people that show up need to solve the problem? So, like, we're in the big store shopping, and I hear gunshots, and me and 33 other concealed carry holders pull our pistols and start searching the store. At some point, the police are going to show up. They're going to have to treat all of us like a threat. So all we've done is complicate things.
Okay. Makes sense.
And then the third one is this worth risking my life? And that should be a very short list.
Yeah, and you know, some people have a hard time with it's abstract when you talk about risking your life. And they think, well, you know, I can risk my life. And I try to point out to them, no, it's not just you being affected by that. It's everybody in your family. It's everybody who loves you. It's everybody who depends upon you. You are putting at risk all of them and the trauma and everything else. You know, is it worth it? Because somebody is carjacking somebody over there. Well, again, it's a car, and they're making more all the time. It's just, let it go.
Yeah, my primary job in life is providing and protecting Gretchen, my wife. If I get dinged up in something I had no business being involved in the first place, now I've forfeited that because I can no longer take care of her.
No, it's a great point. Great point. And how's Gretchen?
She is doing well. She's actually doing her painting. She's got an art degree, so she's painting full time now.
Yeah.
I'm teaching and working in the gun shop here, so we're living the dream, brother.
So she's still mean as a snake then?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to be careful what you say or do around her.
Yeah, sweetest thing in the world. But I always ask Tyler, how's Reggie? Well, she's mean as a snake. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. While she passes you the biscuits. Come on, give me a break. So for those who are thinking, I like this guy, I want to do some training with him, can they still come to your place in Gunnersville?
Yes, sir, for sure. Now, we're not doing like beginner classes anymore because like we were talking about earlier, there's a bunch of good instructors out there that can get you through the fundamentals.
Okay.
So we're just kind of focusing on, okay, you've got these fundamentals. Now, here's how you fight with this thing if you need to.
I like that because what you're really teaching, as we like to say, the operative word in gunfight is fight. What you're really teaching is fighting, and we're going to use a firearm for that.
Yes, sir. So you got the fundamentals of responding to a threat are move, communicate, use cover, shoot if necessary, and then you got to be thinking to solve the problem. So shooting's way down on the list, and if you're moving to cover, issuing verbal commands, that kind of stuff, you may get what we call the psychological stop. You change the threat's mind about what they thought they were going to do. You're not the victim they thought you were going to be.
Here's a thought, and we're just going to kind of ramble here. Feel free to jump in with anything that hits your head, but I just am thinking about this story that came out of California this last few days. Tragic story. The police go in. This guy supposedly doing an assault. They ended up shooting him up. He didn't have a gun, and that's not really relevant to this deal, but one of the bullets fired by the police officers went through a wall and killed a 14-year-old girl who was in a dressing room trying on a dress. And I was making the point earlier, the 4 rules of gun safety apply even in the middle of a gunfight, don't they?
Especially in a gunfight. So obviously you're keeping the muzzle pointing in a safe direction, finger off the trigger, and then rule number 4, you got to be sure of your target and your backstop. When you launch that bullet, you have to be sure that it's not going to go somewhere and create damage that you cannot afford.
Give us some suggestions on how we can do that. That number 4.
Well, again, it gets into problem solving and thinking, and then knowing those fundamentals. I may have to move to get a clear angle of attack on the threat so that I do have something to trap any rounds that miss or maybe something kind of punches through. Mm-hmm. So I've got to be thinking about where's this bullet going if it does not hit the threat. So, again, it's being able to think. A lot of this boils down to geometry, right? We thought we'd never use it after we got out of school. But you got to be thinking about angles.
Yeah. And there may be situations, in fact, there may be a lot of situations, and you do the same thing I do. We're kind of sitting there in a store or a mall or someplace, and you're thinking, there is absolutely no good angle here. If something broke out, there's nowhere I can shoot where there's a safe backstop. And so you may not be. You may just decide, in this situation, I couldn't shoot.
Yes, sir, for sure. And like knowing when to shoot is important, but knowing when you should not be pressing that trigger is probably more important.
Yeah, this is that thought process. A lot of this you could pick up. Do you still have copies of your book, by the way?
Oh, yes, sir, for sure.
Yeah, the Book of Two Guns. I highly recommend it. It's really that good. All right, so a question for you. I'm going to switch on you some more.
Now, let's back up real quick and touch base on something.
Sure.
One option to that is to go for pelvis shots, which put the threat on the ground. They do a great job of stopping the threat, but it also allows you to shoot at a lower angle.
Especially if you're up close, you could just angle down.
Yes, sir.
Yep, you just close the distance, get right up on top of them, and shoot down into the pelvis. Now you're angling down, and even if you get a pass through, it's going into the floor.
Yes, sir.
As we see all these new guns coming out, and they're coming out like crazy these days, and you and I love our 1911s, but we shoot everything. What's your general impression on the options and the quality of the guns, the pistols particularly, that we're seeing these days?
It's never been better. We're living in like the golden age of firearms. They're making about anything and everything you could desire. They're making it in small compact packages, big full size, and everything in between. Like if you can't find a firearm that fits you these days, then you got some real problems.
Okay, and we won't even go into what those may be.
But yeah, it's I mean, have you ever in your life seen so much great quality stuff coming out of them?
And great quality stuff at pretty affordable prices. I mean, I'm thinking about the M&Ps, the Shields, the P365, the Hellcats, the Ruger Max 9, even the new LCP Max, which is still a little bitty LCP, but now it's a 10+1. These are great options.
Yeah, and then Springfield just came out with a new high power, so that was my favorite of this year.
That is so sweet, and it shoots great, too. It's got a really good trigger.
Yeah, from the factory, it's got a better trigger than a lot of my Brownings did.
Amazing, isn't it? It's just, I mean, it really is something else. And the other thing that's changed from last year to this year is there are guns on the shelves now. You can actually find guns.
Yes, sir. And the other thing is, you're familiar with this. You used to have to buy a pistol, then you sent it to a gunsmith to do all the modifications it needed for concealed carry, duty use, or whatever. Now you can get like 98% of what you need right out of the box.
You really can. And I would suggest that instead of buying a $500 gun and then we'd put $500 or $1,000 into it to get it ready, now you could buy a $500 gun and then go buy $500 or $1,000 worth of training.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Which is worth a whole lot more than the finest trigger you could put on there, because most of the guns now, the duty trigger pull is just fine. It's everything you need. It really is. It's all you need. So is there still a place for the AR-15 when you're talking about self-defense?
Definitely. And, there's been there's a few that pop up every often where this person used their AR-15 to defend their family home or whatever. So, yeah, I think the AR-15, it's like the lever action of old days. Everybody needs one.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, and last question I'm going to ask you, red dots on self-defense guns. On
long guns, rifles, AR, that kind of stuff, I love them. Mm-hmm. On pistols, I think they're the wave of the future, but I've been working with iron sights on pistols for like 50-something years, so I'm not sure if I can make that transition. But I know that people that bring them in, they're functioning good, they're working, everything's squared away there. It does make it a lot easier to shoot accurately, and especially at longer distances or smaller targets.
It definitely does. Tiger, again, I thank you for so much. I just, taking advantage of you and keeping you on longer than I ask you, but we always have good fun here.
It's been a pleasure, sir. It's always great to talk with you, and I appreciate everything that you guys are doing to help hold the line on our gun rights.
Well, thank you, sir. For those who want to take a look at it, Shootrite, SHOOTRITE.org there. And you'll just look for Tiger McKee. Tiger, again, thank you, and tell Gretchen hello for us, please.
We'll do it, sir. Stay safe.